Okay, so I've learned quite a few little tips and tricks that have made building dashboards quite a lot easier. So I showed off at the West Michigan Tableau user group in March of 2019 how to quickly make KPIs using a single sheet and how to leverage containers in your dashboard and demystifying that process. So I'm going to show you through that right here. So we'll open that example workbook that we went through. Okay, so in this example workbook, I've got the sales and profit sheet that we had from one of the Workout Wednesdays. And I'm going to show you how to use containers. So the first thing I'll do is I set it to floating, bring on a vertical container, come to layout. Let's make this a little bit larger here so we can see. And we want the floating container size to be 0, 0, and 1000 by 800, which is the size of the dashboard that we have. Now it can be confusing to remember, like, is this a vertical or is this a horizontal? So a trick that I picked up from Curtis Harris is if you just drop two blanks in the way that your dashboard's designed, and you can maybe like just set a background or a border. I'm gonna do a background because that sounds like fun tonight. And this will remind you what it is. And so when you're dealing with this dashboard, it's all about that dotted line. Now, when we're building a dashboard, we want the title, we want a KPI line, and we want both of the sales and the profit charts. So let's go ahead and build a KPI chart. Now, the way that when I first started using Tableau of building KPIs is I'd pick what KPI I wanted, say it's discount, and I'd come in here, and I'd like type out discount, and that'd be my KPI and have a new sheet for each KPI. It's terrible. You can quickly end up with way too many sheets inside of your dashboard, and it becomes pretty difficult to get each sheet appropriately sized in order to make sure that they're not cut off and everything looks right. So what you can actually do instead is grab measure values, measure names, bring measure names to columns, take off that show header, and you can edit the filter in measure name and the filters and remove things that you don't want to see in your KPI list. Say you want to sort that then. Say, I don't really particularly care for that order. Go to manual sorting. Say we want our sales, then, I don't know, maybe profit, then the quantity, then the discount. And we have the row lines right now. So what we can do is we can format. And on this row divider, take pane to none. And now look at that. It starts to look pretty good. I've got the measure name and the measure value. I actually go ahead and put the measure value on the top, measure name on the bottom. And we can adjust this. Maybe make a Tableau bold, bump the size to 22, and we'll take measure names, and we'll put that to maybe Tableau medium. Let's put that to 14. Click apply. Now the justification for the KPI still really doesn't look all that ideal. So my next recommendation is to take on both the horizontal and vertical, center, and middle. And now look at that. If I make that entire view, whenever I resize this KPI sheet now, I'm off to the races. To kind of keep my sanity, I always like to name things. So now let's take our KPI sheet. And I go into the secret to using containers is this dotted line. When you don't have a dotted line, no good. That's not what you want. And again, to keep your sanity, the first thing I'll do is when I bring on either a horizontal or a vertical container is place two blanks and give them a border or give them an outline. And that way you know it's a padding. So while you're building and you can picture in your head that hierarchical structure, you're going to look for that dotted line. That dotted line is your key to success. So I let go in the wrong way. Now with this KPI list, I really don't want a title. Now when I bring it in here, you see that this just doesn't look right. It's cut off. I can't see anything. But by leveraging these containers, instead of having to drag things around manually, I can actually come in here and say, I want to adjust the height. And when I first found out about this just blew my mind. I can say I want it 100 pixels tall. That's perfect. Now every dashboard should have a title. And I think a good title is going to use the horizontal. Now with the vertical, every time I bring, the original one was the vertical, every time I bring a new one on, I get these extra dotted lines. I can continue to add additional objects, whether they're an image, a blank, it doesn't really matter. So in this case, I took a horizontal container and I'm going to place it on top of my KPIs. And this is going to be the dashboard title. So I let go. And when it first comes on, it's a crazy size. Don't panic. It's all right. We know right away that we want on the left-hand side an icon, on the right-hand side the dashboard title. So I'm going to grab image, and I drop it in. And we'll just grab that server image from the example download. Fit the image. Center the image. It's a good habit to get into. Then we're going to grab text. It's every dashboard. Let go too soon. Every dashboard title needs to have some text. I'll let go. And I knew that this was a horizontal one, so images is the first thing that I brought on, which is going to be the left, and the blank is going to be, or this text is going to be on the right-hand side. So I didn't go ahead and set this up where I put the two blanks. I knew that this was going to be my first step. Now, if I was going to do more than two or come back to this at later stages, I'd definitely put those blanks in as those placeholders. So in this case, we're going to name it something fun. How about Sally Sue's Silly Server Services? I don't know. I've just been in the mood for a little alliteration here. Let's make it 22 Tableau Light. You know what? The KPI is 22. Let's make this 28. It doesn't have to be super professional. It doesn't matter. Now, for a dashboard title, this is too big. Way too tall. Takes too much screen real estate. This is where we come over to the layout. Now you'll notice that we don't have that generated tiled container sheet. Like if I were to bring a new dashboard over here and just come over and say, I want a dashboard title, and I'm going to bring out KPI, and then I'm going to bring out sales, and then I'm going to bring out profit. And I come over to the layout, and I get this tiled and vertical. And as you continue to build out your dashboard, you get another tiled here. You make modifications to it. And it doesn't come long before you're going to expand these like 20 layers deep. And this is what can be really confusing when you're first building a dashboard and you're starting to get used to Tableau. It's like, what is this doing and what purpose does this serve? And it's hard to figure out. And if it wasn't for that Workout Wednesday process, I don't think I ever would have. But having explained it, it becomes a lot more apparent. And the more that you work with it, the more comfortable you can get with it. So when I come over here, I say this horizontal area. I know this is the dashboard title. So one of the things I can do is rename that dashboard item. I don't need it to be horizontal. I can just go ahead and call it something that's human readable that's going to make sense to me. And I can do this with pretty much everything in here. You know, company icon, logo. And dashboard title, text, etc. You can get as granular as you want. That can be beneficial when your dashboard grows in size and complexity, and you want to just have built in some reminder processes. So when you come back in a few weeks or a month, hey, how did I do this? You'll have little breadcrumb trails to remind you. So again, we're going to edit the height on this. 289 pixels high. It's a little over the top for a dashboard title. Let's make it 90. That seems a little bit more realistic. But now the dashboard title of the company is cut off. Now because if we select the dashboard title, you see the dotted line here. We know that this is the horizontal and not the vertical. So that means these objects on the inside, when I click on this drop down, I'm going to be able to edit the width. So I don't need 467 pixels in width in order to handle this. I need maybe I don't know, 80. That's a little bit more manageable. Now for the icon, I probably don't need these spaces. Maybe I want a little spacing on the right-hand side so it doesn't get really close to the paper edge if I have to print this, which, let's be honest, we probably are. So now that I know that this is going to be the top of my dashboard, I can actually now make the decision to get rid of this placeholder blank that we put in the top. And when I do that, you see that the size that we specified for the title and the size that we specified for the KPIs remain static. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to bring a vertical on, because the vertical is going to control these two sheets for sales and profit. I want sales on the top, profit on the bottom. So I grab that vertical, and again, I look for that dotted line and I let go. I grab my first sheet, sales, and I just drop it in. I grab my second sheet of profit, and I've got that dotted line. I don't want the dotted line, I want it on the bottom. So, and I let go too soon. It's my shift key. And I want it like there. Now, that whole process of when I first brought on sales and profit, you notice that I did not have the dotted line. And that can be confusing. It trips me up constantly. Another great reason as to why I'll put these blank placeholders in when I first bring either a horizontal or a vertical on. Now, as you get familiar with it, you know right away the first two things that you're going to bring in that's not going to work, and you just drug that container on, so you know if it's horizontal or vertical, and you can start to skip those steps. I'm going to undo that. And I see this this vertical that I brought on. We're just going to go through that entire exercise. I'm going to bring a blank on. I'm going to bring my second blank on. No dotted line, because this is only the second object I brought onto the container. And I let go. I come to layout. We can do border this time instead of shading. And now I'm going to see my dotted line. I bring out my profit. I have my dotted line. And now it's safe to come in here and remove these placeholders. So there is a method to the madness as to why you would do that. Now, one of the extra great features about this is now that we have transparent sheets, is if you come to layout and you say, hey, this dashboard title, I don't want to have to go into each of these sheets and specify the colored background, but I want the background of that dashboard to have a little bit of a splash to kind of break up how this dashboard looks. So you can select a border for it. Let's make it a super light blue. Nah, gray. That's a border. I don't want a border. I meant this. It looks terrible. Doesn't matter. There, pretty simple dashboard. One of the great benefits of leveraging these containers is the scalability in the future. You add extra KPIs to the KPI layout, it's much easier to dynamically adjust that. If you decide in the future with your KPIs that you don't want it across the top of the dashboard, you want it going down, you just drag it down, format, come to your rows, and it's not that one, it's this, and none on the banding. And now your KPI will go up and down. With your dashboard set up like this, and this having nested layout containers, and controlling that layout process, it's not nearly as scary when you come inside this and understand, like, how does this dashboard work? I got one vertical. I've got the dashboard title. That's got the logo. It's got the dashboard text. I've got my KPI sheet. And I've got my sales and my profit inside of this vertical container. I can even rename this and just say graphics. Lots of different options here, and dramatically simplified. Last little tip here is, because we've used these layout containers, I can decide in the future that I want to shrink this dashboard down to maybe make it a better layout for We can come into device preview and look at a tablet. Say generic tablet's a 1,000. Let's bump it to just 900 and make it 600. Look at that. So these are just some of the little tips and tricks that you can extract out of those weekly Makeover Monday and Workout Wednesday processes. I'm personally a huge fan of the Workout Wednesday. They really kind of push the envelope and expose certain skill sets depending on the challenge for each week. So here's just a couple of tips and tricks that have been really useful for myself in building dashboards and expanding functionality at work. Thanks for watching.